back, ladies. This month of October, we are going to be talking about Rahab. And so by the end of this video, if you guys want to understand how you can lead others, how you can be a leader, I encourage you to definitely stay on and hear this out. If you're interested in learning more about lifestyle manifestation and creating a life that is pleasing to the Lord, please make sure that you hit the bell and subscribe to our channel. And so I'm just a mom, psychologist, wife, daughter who's trying to live my life according to God's will and God's purpose. And so some of this is stuff that I've learned or experiences that I've had. And so join me as we talk about Rahab and how we can lead others in many different arenas, right? And so we're going to be focusing today on Joshua chapter 2 verses 8 through 14, and it goes, "Before the spies lay down for the night, she went up on the roof and said to them, 'I know that the Lord has given this land to you, and that a great fear of you has fallen on us, so that all who live in this country are melting in fear because of you. We have heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea for you when you came out of Egypt, and what you did to Sihon and Og, the two kings of the Amorites east of the Jordan, whom you completely destroyed. When we heard of it, our hearts melted, and everyone's courage failed because of you. For the Lord your God is God in heaven above and on the earth below. Now then, please swear to me by the Lord that you will show kindness to my family, because I have shown kindness to you. Give a sure sign that you will spare the lives of my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all who belong to them, and that you will save us from death. Our lives for your lives," the men assured her. If you don't tell what we are doing, we will treat you kindly and faithfully when the Lord gives us the land." So let's backtrack. Rahab was a prostitute in Jericho. She lived within the fortress walls of Jericho, and Jericho was part of the land that God had promised to his people when he got them out of Egypt. And so God's people had seen many blessings and miracles. And so, the parting of the Red Sea and all of the challenges they had gone through, and how God had seen them through those things, and word of these miracles had definitely spread around in Jericho. And it made the people of Jericho fearful, because they knew that, they had these powers, right? Or what we know as the favor of the Lord. So when these spies, when Joshua, who's leading the people of God out of Egypt, he gets to Jericho and he sends spies to kind of get the lay of the land. And these, they hear of that. Rahab hears of them, and she takes them to the roof of her house. And the king hears that the spies are there. And so he sends people over to Rahab, and Rahab said, "No, they left. I don't know where they went." So in essence, she hid them. And so then she goes up to the roof and she says the scripture that I just read. She tells them, "Hey, I've heard of the things that have happened. I've heard of your God. I've heard what you've been through and how God has seen you through. And I'm hoping that, you will, because I've took care of you, that you're going to take care of me and my family when you guys come and take over the city." So they're like, "Yeah, cool, for sure, life for our life. So you save our life, we're gonna save our life." So they come back, they come back to take over, and they don't destroy Rahab's home. They don't destroy her family. They kill every living thing inside the walls of Jericho except Rahab and her family. And then we see that she comes out of of Jericho, and she joins the people of God. She joins them in their camp, and she becomes like them, right? She follows the Lord, and she lives among them, among the Israelites. And then we later see that she gets married, settles down, and she ends up being the mom of Boaz, which we talked about a couple months ago, was the man who married Ruth, who then extends down to the lineage of Jesus. So we see a few things going on here. Rahab was a sinner. She was a prostitute. She was probably definitely looked down by the Israelites. She was also looked down by the people in her camp. We see that, that's a profession that brings shame even to this day. It's seen as illegal and immoral. So you can imagine all of the labels and things that were said about Rahab, that were thought about Rahab, and kind of how she lived her life in the underbelly of society. So she was by no shape, means, or form a leader, an example of, or what we think is a leader or someone worthy of that status. Another thing that we see about Rahab is that she was down with the tea. She knew what was going on around her, right? She had heard of the miracles. She had heard of the promises that God made his people and how he has seen them through. And she was aware of what was going on. She wasn't chosen. She wasn't an Israelite, right? She was not part of the chosen people, but she had heard the stories and she was alert and paying attention. And we also see that when the opportunity arises for Rahab, she takes a position. She could have played, when the spies showed up to her house, she could have played that in a 10 million different ways. She could have called the king. She could have given them up. She could have told them to leave with them. But she took a position and she held on to that position. And her position was, I've heard of the miracles. I know that this camp is going down. I know that Jericho is going down, and I need to protect myself and my family. So I'm going to look out for them so that they can then in turn around and look out for me and my family. So when the opportunity showed up, Rahab was quick. She was about her family, she was about her people, and she was about, taking a position that was going to benefit her, right? And then we see that Rahab, with those decisions, we see that she led her family. Rahab ultimately led the rest of her family into God's kingdom. She ultimately became, a woman in the lineage of Jesus himself. And so we see that this completely transformed her life. And so how many times, we're all sinners. I have screwed up and messed up so many times, right? And I know the things that God has done in my life, and I've seen the things that God does in my life and the life of others. And I'm aware, the streets are talking, things are going on. We're aware of the things that are going on in this world. But it's not enough to just recognize that you're a sinner, and it's not enough to be aware of what's going on in your surroundings and what's happening. You have to be alert and ready to take a position when decisions and when opportunities show up. I know that there's a time in my life when I had to make a decision that I did not want to make. I didn't think it benefited me. I didn't think that it was fair. I was pouting and crying and screaming and kicking my head. And 10 years later, that decision has me taking a stance and doing what I thought was the next right thing, and listening to God's word. That decision has led me to have many jobs, many incomes, a lot of relationships and opportunities that I wouldn't have had I not chosen to take a position and a stance at that moment. And so we see that that's the same thing that happened with Rahab. She was given this opportunity, and she made a decision, and she stood by it. And ultimately, all of these things, this woman that was thought to be, the least thing in society, who wasn't chosen, who didn't come from a respected family line, who was thought to not have much, became the leader of her family. She became the person to bring her entire family into God's kingdom. And she ultimately became an ancestor of Jesus. And so we see that these things that she did allowed her to lead others. And it didn't matter what her initial position was. It didn't matter what she had done. It didn't matter what other people thought about her. What mattered was that she took a position, and this decision in this time of uncertainty was what propelled her to her next level in life. And even in my own personal life, I know that the times where things are uncertain, where things are up in the air, where there's no stability, those are the times that are crucial, because those are turning points. There are decisions that are made in those places of indecisiveness that can change your life completely. And so even though it looks like the world around you is on fire, it looks like everything is going down, we must be really, really alert and paying attention and listening to what is going on during those times, because decisions made in those times can change things drastically for us. And those are opportunities that can propel us to the next level, like that opportunity propelled Rahab. So I want you to start, thinking about this month as you're praying and meditating and reading the word. Are you paying attention? Would you know if God sent you an opportunity that maybe didn't look like an opportunity? And if you don't know, I want to really encourage you to start praying so that God gives you clarity and focus, and the ability to listen and be open to whatever God has for you, in store for you. And so that's really my prayer this month, and what I encourage all of us to kind of be thinking about. Are we taking the opportunities, or are we being, pulled in with the craziness, the insanity of everything that's going on around us, and not really taking a step back and saying, wait a minute, I know everything is crazy, but let me see where there's an opportunity in this. Let me see where God is opening a door for me in this. Let me see what this place of disadvantage, what decisions and what positions can I take in this place of disadvantage to propel me to my next level. And so I really pray that you guys can benefit from this word, that you guys reflect and meditate and pray on this, and that the Lord reveals himself to you and your life and your loved ones, and that you can stand as a leader. And being a leader not only has to be a leader, like running things at work. Being a leader could be a leader in your family, in your community, being a leader with your friends, being a leader at school, work. There's a million ways that we can step up to that. But in order to step up to that, we have to be open and willing to see what the opportunities are. So if you're interested in learning more about us, make sure you check out our link at unorthodoxgroup.com, and don't forget to like our videos, and I wish you many blessings. Take care and have a good month.